whereas Gandhi's principles of non-violence have become even more relevant, even more resonant, even more important for the future of the human race. So, that someone acknowledged as the most creative, the most original, the most brilliant scientist of the modern times would regard Gandhi as his icon is worth pondering. And my talk today will not refer to Einstein again. It will give you a few illustrations of why someone as sensitive, as humane, as insightful, as empathetic as Albert Einstein could venerate Gandhi so. We are meeting in New York. A few weeks ago, this city commemorated the 10th anniversary of 9/11. On the 11th of September 2001, we all became, I beg pardon, on the 11th of September 2001, we all became New Yorkers. That event is remembered in this city, in this country, or in every country of the world. It's remembered for its barbarism, the barbarism of those who committed that horrible act, and it's remembered also for the resilience of those who suffered, who lost their loved ones, and who then built, piece by piece, rebuilt their lives. But I'm going to take you back to another 9/11, a less known 9/11, a 9/11 whose message, in a sense, is radically opposed to, is an alternative to the message of the 9/11 that we much better know and which occurred in this city. The 9/11 I'm going to introduce you to occurred in another city, in another continent. In fact, it occurred in the city of Johannesburg, in the country of South Africa, where on the 11th of September 1906, that is 95 years before the other 9/11, on the 11th of September 1906, a mass meeting of Indians in the Transvaal was held in the Empire Theatre in Johannesburg. This meeting was called to protest a new racial act of the Transvaal government, an ordinance known as the Asiatic Ordinance, which forbade Indians to own property except in specified locations, which forbade them from trading except in specified locations, which mandated that they carry a pass at all times to be produced whenever the police wanted, an ordinance which had other such discriminatory measures designed to mark out the Indians as a community inferior in status, in privilege, in humanity to the dominant white race. The opposition to this ordinance was led by Mohandas K. Gandhi, who was then a little known and obscure lawyer working in South Africa. He moved to South Africa in 1893. He first lived in Durban. After a few years, he moved to Johannesburg. And while living in Johannesburg, he came face to face with the discrimination that the Asians were facing, the Indians and the Chinese were facing from the white regime. So he organized this meeting on the 11th of September 1906. And here is the scene in that theatre as described by a local newspaper. I quote, "Even in its palmiest days, the Empire Theatre could never have boasted of a larger audience than that which assembled yesterday. From the back row of the gallery to the front row of the stalls, there was not a vacant seat. The boxes were crowded as surely they had never been crowded before, and even the stage was invaded. Wherever the eye lighted was fez and turban, and it needed but little stretch of the imagination to fancy that one was thousands of miles away from Johannesburg and the heart of India's teeming millions." Now, before organizing this meeting on the 11th of September 1906, Gandhi had written a series of letters and petitions to the ruling authorities urging them to withdraw the discriminatory and racist regime. When those letters and petitions were disregarded, he organized the meeting, and at this meeting, those assembled passed a resolution, and the resolution said, since our humble prayer in regard to the draft Asiatic Law Ordinance has been rejected, this mass meeting solemnly and regretfully resolves that rather than submit to the galling and tyrannous requirements laid down in the new law, every Indian in the Transvaal shall submit himself to imprisonment and shall continue to do so until it shall please His Gracious Majesty, the King Emperor, to grant relief. So this was a move from petition to protest. Having exhausted the more incremental, the more polite, the more deferential method of appealing to the authorities to withdraw the regime, it was decided to protest. But the importance of non-violence, then and now, is that it is a step further from petition, but it is also a step away from the use of violence. Now, Gandhi was writing at a time when political assassination was a method widely used all across Europe. Left-wing radicals, socialists, anarchists, anti-monarchists throughout Eastern and Western Europe who wanted to make a point, who were appalled at the dictatorial regimes that ruled over them, chose the politics of the gun, assassinated a king, a general, a prime minister, in a spectacular act of defiance, which it was felt would rouse the masses. The great Karl Marx, a somewhat senior contemporary of Gandhi, once said, violence is the midwife of history. So that was an alternative political ideology of violence. And that ideology was also prevalent in Gandhi's homeland, India. At this time, 1905, the first decade of the 20th century, British India also witnessed a series of assassinations by terrorists. In fact, those people were called terrorists. That was the name of the young, patriotic but misguided Indian radicals from different provinces, from Bengal, Maharashtra and the Punjab, who thought that the only way to end British rule was to commit a series of spectacular murders of imperial governors and proconsuls. So the crucial point about what Gandhi was trying to do in South Africa in 1905-1906 was that he was going a step further than those who wrote polite petitions. Gandhi tried that method. He tried to appeal to reason, to justice, to the conscience of the authorities. And when the authorities were unfeeling and stony and rejected all these civilized methods of seeking redressal or polite methods of seeking redressal, that Gandhi chose the alternative of non-violent protest. And for this method, he coined the term satyagraha, or truth force. Non-violent protest was the embodied force of truth, because it combined, as the Secretary General said, means and ends. The end was the ending of injustice. But the means was the just way to end injustice, not taking the lives of your opponent, not threatening them with bombs and bayonets and bullets, but by mobilizing collectively, non-violently, in a show of solidarity to oppose discriminatory law.